Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Rita. I hope you all are doing well. So today we are going to talk about the interview Larry Elder had with the Breakfast Club. It is all over the interwebs. So the Breakfast Club, for those of you who don't know, it is hosted by Charlemagne and this lady, Teslin Figueroa. She's usually there by Zoom. And another guy, forget his name. But anyway, so on this show, they are very much the systemic racism crew.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is.
So the last interview with Vivek Ramaswamy was pretty crazy. The Teslin Figueroa lady is extraordinarily disrespectful.
You've been sitting around in the country that my ancestors built.
People who have dug in their heels and decided that they really aren't hearing what you have to say, that they have already made their decision. This is kind of what I felt like watching this interview as Larry was bringing up different points. They have their ideas about systemic racism. You can't blame any black person for anything. No fault. The black people aren't at fault for anything. Everything is about something systemic, elusive system that nobody can find, nobody can describe, nobody can really give us real definitions of who's running it. So I'm going to play a clip.
It seems to me, rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are,
which I don't think is
a particularly productive thing to do.
Well, I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy.
We got to a point like in the 80s and 90s where you really didn't hear anything hardly about race like that. You heard it from the usual suspects, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Cornel West and the rest. And those were the radical dashiki wearing black power. Nobody was feeling that. People were trying to get on. People were just trying to earn their degrees or get through their programs or whatever. And nobody was focusing on this race stuff. This stuff has been reignited or something. It's been like regenerated by some groups that just want to make money. Every generation there's race hustlers. And I feel like these people, they just push this narrative that does not help anyone. It does not help black people. If anything, it tells you the system's gonna push you down. So why even try? Now, what is that supposed to do for you?
Told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks live below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
choice. But they still were living
ourselves.
below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move.
They equate being poor necessarily with high crime. So if you're poor, you're guaranteed to be a criminal and that you are just a wild, savage animal. It's not because they're poor that they're looting. It's because they lack integrity. They lack ethics. They have not been properly socialized into civilized society. They only know that hood street stuff. The parents won't even take accountability for their own kids' poor behavior. And a lot of people think that it's racism that is the monster of everything that we see in the black community against whites, against Asians. But you see the same savage type of like crimes and just a very disrespectful interactions in terms of just like not caring about other people's time, calling it white supremacy, not caring about property, other people's property or even your own property, letting the weeds grow out of control, not cleaning up, throwing trash on the ground, the violence, all of these things, the abuse within their own communities. This is how you know this is not necessarily just a race thing that we see perpetrated against whites, are also perpetrated against blacks in the community. I strongly believe, and I've thought about this, I think that there is a covet problem in Black culture. There is a covet problem, and there's an insecurity problem that is linked to that. People wish they had what somebody else has. When people attack white people, they automatically associate white people with wealth, even if white people aren't wealthy. And because they wish they had the wealth, instead of trying to say, hey, how did you get this wealth? Like, I want to try to get that. It's like, no, I hate you because you have something that I don't have. Oh, you think you have a nice this? I'll burn it to the ground. Oh, you think you have nice hair? I'll rip it right out of your head. These are the kinds of responses that you'll see from Black people toward other Black people about things that obviously they're insecure about. People try to act like people don't even talk about that that's a thing. But I think that there's covetousness happening. I think that there are Black people who are extremely insecure about who they are in their own skin, and they project that in violence. I think this is why the Bible talks so sternly against being covetous. Or one of the reasons. There is even a verse in there that says, you covet what you don't have, so you murder. Okay, I think it's James 4:7, something like that. I think that sums it all up. I was watching this interview with this woman who was a social worker in Louisiana. And she was talking about how the crime is so bad there and the young people are bored. And I hear this argument all the time. The young people are bored. There are no opportunities, yada, yada, yada. That is not going, putting programs and throwing money at this is not going to make these kids behave any better. You can put as many programs as you want in these neighborhoods, but the street is familiar. Oftentimes it's more attractive. You might have a couple, 2, 3 kids who will see these opportunities or whatever they are, whether it's job training, whether it's after school programs. Yeah, you're going to have some kids who are going to be into it. But by and large, you're going to have a lot of kids who don't want anything to do with that. How do we know? Well, we know that kids who try to do something outside of the street life in these all Black neighborhoods get picked on, get called white. I was watching, I think it was like a documentary on hip hop or something a while ago. Chance the Rapper talked about how he got into producing. There's a huge library in Chicago, Harold Washington Library. They basically have open hours in this awesome music studio where you just sign in and you can make your own beats and everything. And they let you record and the whole shebang. So while his peers were in the streets, all people were like, they don't have any opportunities and any resources. He was doing what? It's the culture.
Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake up call? It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a Black person.
But if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't Black.
The culture that says that you're Black, so you're supposed to be ignorant, you're supposed to speak Ebonics, you're supposed to pop your neck and roll your eyes if you're a woman and have all of your A, B's, and C's and get cash and prizes out. If you are not involved in either degenerate behavior or Black power, either those are the 2 camps you belong in. And if you're not in one of those camps, then by golly, I don't know what to tell you. So there is this mindset, I believe, that comes along with this mode of thinking about Black people.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for Black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for Black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
People like this don't feel like Black people either don't have the capacity to be accountable to any of their behavior. You almost feel like either these types of people, these progressive views, are really looking down their nose at Black people. You can't help yourself. You can't help it. It's the poverty that has you misbehaving in such a fashion. If you're poor, you're almost necessarily Black, according to Joe Biden.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I think Larry Elder did well. I'm glad he's running for president. I'm glad that that people are able to hear a different perspective. It's easy to just sit around and say, yeah, somebody's keeping me down. That's like a real lazy person's mantra. I can't because, somebody's got their foot on my neck. But what about all these other black people? Yeah, that was just a special circumstance. But me, yeah, I can't. These people who, again, like the Breakfast Club and like others who they basically make a living telling other black people how the system it's no use trying. The system's going to keep you down. You're never going to make the money you want to make. And so don't even try. They get paid a pretty penny, just like those of the past, the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharpton, who's still spewing this crap. All the millions he's made spewing this crap. Like Al Sharpton has been doing this since the civil rights movement. You mean to tell me all these years he's been doing this and he still hasn't figured out how to teach people how to get out of poverty? Oh, that's right. The system. System didn't hold him down, but it's holding you down. So he's going to fight for your freedom, I guess. Anyway, I hope and pray more and more interviews like this will let people know what the Republican Party stands for and what the Democrat Party stands for. The Democrat Party, especially today, they are off the chain crazy. Their policies are off the charts crazy. Anyway, until next time, you guys take care and I will chat with you soon. Ciao.